Welcome to another episode of Sit Down and Think, where we get the skinny on what is happening in the world of animation straight from the industry itself. With Amphibia wrapping up its phenomenal season 2, I'm sitting down with a very special guest. Ladies and gentlemen and in-betweens, Amphibia creator and showrunner, Matt Braley. It's great to have you on, Matt. So I'm imagining you're riding a bit of a high right now with so much praise you've been getting from season 2 and as much people were so surprised by, the finale and everything. So I imagine you're definitely right. You and possibly all of the crew are riding a massive high right now.
Yeah, it's been really, really exciting for us. I mean, honestly, I don't think I've ever had one of our episodes get such a positive reaction. You know what I mean? Like we absolutely have had episodes that people loved, but this one, we feel like we're drowning a little bit in positivity, which is great. You know what I mean? Because this episode has had quite the kind of like history around it. You know what I mean? But we're so glad that people enjoyed it. We're so glad that people really enjoyed season 2 and are excited for season 3.
Yeah, I definitely could say. I definitely could say this. When I watched the finale, by the time it was over, I literally was shaking. Like, I was so hyped up, and I was like, wow. I'm like, geez,
That's awesome.
I gotta sit for a minute. That was intense. That was a lot. Like, it was just so much. It was so well made.
When one of our board artists, Silver Paul, when we had the table read, I think he turned to me and he said, "This is crazy in the best possible way." You know what I mean? Like, and also during that table read, and the table read it's a lot of folks' first time, like even hearing the story. You know what I mean? There were so many moments where I had to kind of stop and say, just hear me out. You know what I mean? Like, you know what I mean? Like, stay with me now, because now it's going to get crazy, you know?
Right. Like, I imagine that's what it was. It's like, we're going to be doing some stuff that's like, all right, like, people need to buckle up, and we just need to go out.
Exactly. Like, and we were so excited making it, and we were sitting on this thing, you know what I mean, for so long, and we're so happy that it's out there, and that it seems like people were as kind of surprised, you know what I mean, as we were hoping. And I think too that like it's such an escalation. The episode is really like a runaway train at a certain point, you know?
Right. I think that's it. I definitely can feel that by the midpoint, because in the first half, you definitely feel like it's like, okay, I know what this is, the rebellion and all that, and you think that's what it's mainly about. It's like, but then you get to the second half, it's like, wait, the wheels popped off the train, the conductor's passed out, everyone's like, there's a monkey on board. What's happening? Like, it's just insane.
Yeah. We wanted it to feel like the characters had lost complete control of the situation, and it was just getting worse and worse for them. You know what I mean?
Oh yes, I definitely felt like it's like, no one's in control of this situation anymore. Like, if you think the bad guys are in control, they're not, and if you think the good guys are in control, they're definitely not. So I think you guys definitely did a phenomenal job, and keeping it. So being able to throw people off with what was to be expected. So
and there's a lot in there. It's a jam-packed 24 minutes, you know.
Yeah, it definitely is jam-packed, and I think it culminates perfectly together, honestly. So I definitely say bravo to you and the crew on that front. So
thank you. No, we really appreciate it. I mean, the episode, it means so much to us, and like, again, the kind of story around it, the whole problem with the release and the mystique, you know what I mean? It's really made it at least memorable, you know what I mean? And there's parts about like, there were compromises made in terms of like how it had to come out. The vision was intact, but there were certain things that like needed to be put on either side of the episode in order for the studio to feel comfortable.
Right. Yeah. I definitely could tell by the end of it. It's like, yep. That definitely had to be the studio definitely had to be like sweating from that moment.
And like maybe we can get into it a little bit later, but like it is such a like I'm such a relief that people liked it, because man, it is a silver lining. You know what I mean? Like it's been sort of a tough time, you know, the politics and dealing with it, but like it's been so satisfying to see people react.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we'll definitely get a bit more into it. But for now, I definitely want to ask you, what was your journey to the world of animation that led you to creating your own show? Like, what were your biggest inspirations getting into it?
Yeah, for sure. So I always loved to draw. You know what I mean? From a very young age, I loved to draw Transformers and Mortal Kombat characters. That was like huge for me. I'm a big Sonic fan. I would draw a lot of Sonic stuff too. You know, we are really just a combination of our influences, and for me, that's fairly obvious. I think when you watch Amphibia, you're like, well, this dude loves Zelda. Oh, and he loves Sonic, and I think he loves, you know what I mean, like all these things, like Chrono Trigger, and you know, like about 20 video games, all kind of like packed in. It's like a love letter to things that you know I grew up with. But you know, I didn't take drawing seriously as a career until I got to high school. There was a man who came career day. We had a career day, and he was from Pixar, and he was so cool. And I think he drew like Lumiere from Beauty and the Beast on like the chalkboard, and it was perfect. And he said, "You could do this. You know, you could make a living drawing cartoons." And from there, I was kind of like in. You know what I mean? I was like mesmerized. This is all I wanted. You know,
Right.
I wanted to tell stories, and I wanted to make people laugh, and I wanted to make them excited and make them cry. And like, you know, this was my in. So from then on, I was like incredibly dedicated towards like getting into animation. So I, you know, started doing a lot of life drawing in high school. And then I applied for California Institute of the Arts because that's where this guy went. And he was like, that's a great place to go if you want to get into animation. You know, after 4 years there, my first job was actually at DreamWorks animation feature. And I was working on a film called Turbo, which was about a racing snail,
Right.
which is funny because like we have snails in our show too. But like when we designed the snails in Amphibia,
Right.
I really wanted to make sure they felt like snails from the Neverending Story or something, like kind of like gross and gloopy and kind of like made with practical effects, like as opposed to the cartoony snails from Turbo, because I had a little bit of PTSD from working on Turbo. I was like, I don't need to see like those big cartoony eyes ever again, you know? Kind of thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I definitely, that was a movie I always would see around, but it's like, I never watched it because I was like, snail.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's
okay.
the movie is the movie, and they actually made a dope show, like a Titmouse made a TV show. It was really cool. You know what I mean? Like I remember that was something that was really cool that came out of it. Like I think
Right.
a lot of the folks who also worked on Motor City also worked on that Turbo cartoon, and it was awesome. But for me, I remember I took one of my best friends to see the movie after we had finished it. And, you know, I was sitting there with the movie and the end credits came on, and I was like, you know what? It wasn't that bad. And I turned to him and he was like asleep.
That's definitely like very differing in terms of opinions. Like polar opposites right there.
Yeah, but I enjoyed my time at DreamWorks, but at a certain point I got very impatient. You know, I was doing a lot of I felt like I had a lot more to offer in terms of storytelling, and I had heard that there was this guy who was starting up a TV show named Alex Hirsch. I did not know him in school, but I was always like a big fan of his. His films were so funny, you know what I mean, and smart and clever. And he was making a show that I heard was had a little bit of X-Files in it. You know what I mean? Had some magic and mystery, and you know, I was very intrigued. So I went over with a bunch of other folks from DreamWorks, and he showed us the show. He pitched us some episodes, and I was in. I loved it. You know what I mean? So I applied for a job at Gravity Falls, and luckily I got it. After doing boards for one season, I worked my way up to director on season 2. And I became a director not because I was the best board artist, because I was not. I was not the best board artist. I tell everyone I'm like a B- board artist, like at best. You know what I mean?
Right.
But I was a really great communicator. You know what I mean? And so directing was a lot more communication. It was a people job. It was a people person job. And I really enjoyed, you know, bringing the best out of my team. It was not about what I could do. It was about what I could inspire other folks to do. And I really liked that. But even then, as a director on Gravity Falls, I never really wanted my own show. It was not something I ever thought about. I only ever wanted to be like a cog at Pixar. Like I was going to be like the best cog ever. You know what I mean? Like
Ah.
be a great board artist or whatever. But
Mm,
I never actually was good enough to get a job at Pixar. So I just kind of stayed in TV animation where I fell in love with it. And I
right.
think at some point, I think it was Hirsch. I think Alex Hirsch, like one night, was just like, "You should pitch a show," and I was like, "That's crazy. Nobody would want whatever I'm thinking." You know what I mean? Like it's not going to happen for me. But I think he sort of put the bug in my head where he was like, "No, you could pitch something, no problem. It's not such a big deal." And slowly but surely, it occurred to me that like, well, if it's not me, it's just going to be somebody else. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I might as
Yeah.
well throw my hat in the ring and give it my all and really, really try for it. And luckily, I mean, after 2.5 years or something of like really, really hard development, like we got greenlit and I've been, making the show ever since for 4 years after that. So that's sort of my journey. Like it had a lot of kind of bobbing and weaving in it. Like honestly
Mm,
too, at school, I wanted to be a character designer. I didn't
mm,
want to be a board artist. So my
right.
whole career has kind of been, you know, changing my plans and kind of going with the flow and finding what worked for me. And like it wasn't always the thing that I was expecting, but I'm so happy that I let myself be flexible and kind of fall into these things that like ended up working well for me, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. No, I get you. Like at first, you didn't have the plans to be basically creating your own show, but somehow everything just managed. The universe, the planets aligned, and now you're basically you created this amazing show that a lot of people are just very much clinging to, and basically that's just something you didn't even think was about to happen, but it's like here you are now.
No, it
So
was something, it was like every time a dream kind of broke, I had to make a new plan or a new dream. So after
right,
applying for Pixar, I think like 4 or 5 times, and like every time, like no, 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 no. I was like, okay, this this dream's not working out. And if I
right,
keep like trying for this, I may just like emotionally not be able to take it anymore. So I'm like,
right.
okay, what else is there? Like, what else can I do? You know what I mean? And what else is exciting for me? And then that's when I started focusing my energies towards like, well, could I run my own show? Is that a possibility for me? You know what I mean? So
Right.
it was like, it's cliche, but like one door closes, another one
Oh
opens.
yeah. I think that's really how it kind of can be sometimes. It's like you want to come up with a plan, but sometimes that's just not how it's about to be. It
It
could all change,
doesn't go.
and
Yeah,
I think that's great for it to all work out as well as it did for you to be able to make something like this and be able to have such a strong journey and meet so many great people. And like you said, you were a director, and yet your biggest thing was that you talk to people, you communicated.
exactly. Yeah, yeah, and the show too, Amphibia, is so much about change. You know what I mean? That like it really
Hmm.
reflects my journey too as a storyteller, where like I've had to change and grow, and even between season 1, season 2, season 3 of Amphibia, they're all like very different. You know what I mean? They have very different
Right.
vibes, and I think that like that feels like sort of my journey too, where it's like it sort of feels like every job is different, and I'm learning something new at each one.
Right. I think I think that's definitely what we all get from the jump from season 1 to 2. It's like, yeah, they're now definitely getting more into the grittier parts of things, and I think that's where people really started to notice the show, it was really starting to feel like now people are ready to
Yeah,
hop on board.
yeah. How dare you?
I had to do it to him. Okay. So, with this series being about frogs, what is your favorite frog? Something I was kind of curious about because it feels like you definitely have a clear fascination with amphibious type of creatures and such. So I was always wondering, it's like,
Yeah,
what's your favorite out of them?
yeah, yeah. So my favorite are the weirdest frogs. So like two of them come to mind, and they're sort of meme frogs where like you see them in funny videos. Like I think so. One of them is a desert rain frog, which is like just hilarious. He's like this little kind of gray puffball, and I think there's a funny video of somebody like poking one, and he just like screams. But these things they look amazing. They look utterly bizarre. I think we snuck two of them into an episode called Caravan Named Desire, the one where Hop Hop, tries to be an actor. There's these
Yeah.
two
Right.
goons, these two goons who work for Renee Frogers, and they're desert rain frogs, and you can tell because they have very specific eyes.
Hmm. Oh, okay.
Yeah, and
Okay. I
the
like
other
that.
frog,
You'd be able to.
the other frog I like is called a purple rain frog, and this thing just looks straight up crazy, like an elephant or something. It doesn't look like a frog at all.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, check it out.
So,
It'll give you
like, it's
nightmares.
just
Yeah.
okay. I'm probably look into what that's about. So, on possible influence, my friend Ostrak Fox of the Round Table, shout outs to Kev, wanted to know if you like Sonic X and if it was possible or more or less possible influence for Amphibia.
Well, what a super nerd question.
I mean,
so the answer is embarrassingly, absolutely. So here's the thing. Sonic X. I'm a huge Sonic fan. And I remember the show coming out, and I remember downloading the episodes, like pirating the show, because I had to watch it subbed in Japanese. You know what I mean? I was kind of a purist, so I was like, I gotta watch it as the vision of the director, like exactly as they intended.
Right.
And the show is okay. The show is exactly what it is. But I will say the first episode is like amazingly directed. I don't know if you remember it super well.
Yeah, I do remember. It's like when he comes to Earth for the first time. Like first he rescues Cream, and then he gets transported to Earth. Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's actually very similar to True Colors in a few ways. Where like in the very first episode of Sonic X, there's some crazy shit going down. Eggman's doing something. Everybody's attacking him. And then kablamo, something happens with the Chaos Emeralds, and it flashes to white.
Right.
And Sonic wakes up in a white void, and he can only hear car horns, distant car horns. And he's like, what's going on? And then these cars come rushing towards him, and we truck out, and we reveal that he's on Earth. That's very, very, very similar to what we do at the end of True Colors. And it's 100% inspired by that moment.
Okay. I think I actually could see some of that influence going into True Colors, because it is like, because the first half of that episode for Sonic X, it's like it feels so different, and then you get into the real world, and it's like, oh, Sonic's now alone, and now he has to traverse this unknown world with a bunch of people he's never seen before in his life, and so now that's the thing with True Colors, like, okay, now we think everything's all happy-go-lucky. They just to stop the rebellion. Come to find out, the king is actually an asshole and is about to destroy the world and a bunch of other worlds as well. So it's like, dang, like now that's a whole new thing they have to tackle.
Yeah.
Like, all right.
Yeah, and the Sonic X episode 2, it was so good at kind of dropping Sonic alone, as you said, into this strange new environment. And he has like a crazy, I think he goes against some kind of like gang of like Formula One like racers or something in the first episode. It's a nutty episode, but it's so good and it's so well directed, and like it definitely stuck with me. So I do recommend checking out the original Sonic X like first episode. It's like the only episode of the show you really need to watch. You don't need to watch anything else, because like after that it just becomes very typical after that. But it's a nice piece of directing. So yeah.
I had that episode like on the GBA Advance, like little video cartridges.
Weird.
I would always I was always watching that one back and forth constantly. But I definitely say it's like it was the episode I remember the most, mainly because it's like it was the only cartridge I had, so of course I had to. But it is really good, definitely.
Yeah, but it's like it's good. It's like an objectively good piece of work. You know what I mean? Like, which just sounds funny because it's like this Sonic spinoff, but like there's good work everywhere. You know what I mean? And like that's a good example of like that's a good episode.
Oh yeah, definitely. Out of all, it's like if you need to watch Sonic X, at least just mainly just watch the first episode. That's the most you really need to be getting out of it.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. So with Marcy being introduced, she definitely leaves a strong impression. A lot of fans absolutely love her, and I definitely found myself growing very attached to her. So I want to know, what were the inspirations for Marcy? Like, was she based on anything from childhood?
Yeah, so Marcy, I had a friend group and I was the Marcy. Like that's the way it was. So I think, I relate deeply to her. I know you all relate deeply to her because she's us. You know what I mean? She's a super nerd. She loves, like, she goes all into her interests, like head first down the rabbit hole of the things she loves. And I think that the world of Amphibia to her, it's this beautiful wish fulfillment. And like obviously in True Colors, we learn that has a little bit of a price, a little bit of a dark side. But I think what is so lovable about Marcy is that she really is just like living her best life in this place and just loving it. You know what I mean? We joked about this internally a lot, but Marcy sort of feels like she should have been the main character. You know what I mean? At times where you're like, oh, but this is, she loves it here. And like, you know what I mean? Like I remember even in development, they had asked me like, well, couldn't Anne like just instantly love it here? And couldn't this be a dream come true for Anne? And I was like, no, but that's not going to work for this particular show and the architecture we've set up. You know what I mean? Like, but Marcy comes onto the scene, like explodes onto the scene, and is basically everything that you normally expect from an isekai protagonist. You know what I mean? She loves herself. She loves this world. She loves her friends, and she's just ready for this great adventure. And I think that's so infectious.
Right. And like you said Marcy was supposed to, or people were pitching the idea of Marcy just being the one to be the main protagonist. But I do think with her being if she was the main protagonist, I feel like that would have been a matter of it's too much, like it's like you kind of need.
I definitely agree.
Like you need that grounded character who's like, I'm in this world filled with frogs. What the hell? What is happening? Like you need something just to kind of ground all the crazy stuff happening. And I think Anne holding that.
You're
down.
Right. You're right. Your instincts are correct. And I think you're coming at it like a writer though. You know what I mean? Like, but the execs are always coming at it like businessmen. You know what I mean? Like they're like, well, if it's Marcy and it's this character who loves where she is, kids are just going to have a good time.
It's like, are they though?
Yeah, well, not in the long run, but yeah.
Yeah, they'll have fun for a bit, but then eventually it's like, oh my god, I'm kind of tired of being so happy now. Okay, we gotta chill a bit. So I think that's the big thing. I think Marcy works really well with how much we were given without being overwhelming. I think it's like she does work as a really great, just very energetic and eccentric side character, and that's what basically allows us to attach to her a lot better. It's because it's like we get like a nice dosage, and I think that's just how it should be, how she should be tackled, and how she has been tackled, and I think that's awesome, honestly.
Yeah, exactly. And ultimately, this is Anne's story. You know what I mean? Like this really is her journey, and the three girls, they make up like a nice kind of triangle, a nice little triforce of these qualities. But like Anne really is your center.
Right. Exactly. I think that's exactly right. It's like she basically is that glue between these two extremes, basically. And I think that's what really draws your attention to the dynamics between all three. It's that you have one who's really happy on the positive side, but you also have someone who's really negative on the negative side, and that being Sasha. But you need someone to just act as the nice conduit to kind of keep the positive energy and negative energy from overtaking one another.
Right. And like you said, Anne is you, the viewer, being dropped into this world.
Exactly. Like she's basically the straight man of the bunch, basically, because she's tackling from I just want to go home. I got family. I just that's how a lot of people probably would feel. And I think that's
whatever. And also mechanically from a storytelling point of view, Anne needs to get to Amphibia, not like it, and then over time learn to like it. You know what I mean?
Right. Exactly. Right. I think that's exactly.
It's almost math.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think that's ultimately, I think that all turned out really well, honestly, between them. And so we definitely got to see these temples that basically explored more about what's going on with the music box, with these supernatural like gem elements. and seeing them connect to Sasha, Anne, and Marcy. And I definitely wanted to know, what was the inspirations for the temples, more or less?
So, Legend of Zelda, obviously, strong Legend of Zelda vibes from those kind of temples and the way they had
Right.
kind of elemental qualities. Like you've got your mind temple, your strength temple, your heart temple. But what worked so well about that for us is
Right.
that in this world of wish fulfillment and role play for Marcy, of course there would be these temples and this quest and these gems and this magic and oh, what fun we're having. You know what I mean? Like there was this feeling that it all led into
Right.
Marcy's role play, which is like, she was somewhat deluding herself on this journey. So it ended up being this really nice. We could pay homage to Zelda or any number of games that did this as well. But it made sense for the story, and it made sense for Marcy and her kind of character story, her journey. You know what I mean? Where let's play a little bit. The temples were a little bit of
Mm-hmm.
like, let's have that
Right.
adventure that we were promised. You know what I mean with this premise. But I will say that
Right.
like specifically the temples, like the first temple is very typical in Legend of Zelda. The second temple is a little bit of a twist because
Right.
it was not a temple at all. It was Valeriana, walking through and giving them these tests. So that
Right.
that one was a subversion. And then
Yeah. Most
the
definitely.
third temple, we just wanted to feel like the final level of a Sonic game or something. Lots of lava and spikes, and
Yeah. Oh yeah. I definitely got those vibes because it's like, okay, you got to fight this giant like monster thing, and it's all about just, can you beat this thing? Like this is all on you and your strength. And I think that's interesting with all three, like with all three different philosophies of how you tackled all three different temples, and I think that's something that really helps bridge a nice connection among both the world of Amphibia and the characters of Sasha and Marcy.
Yeah, and
Honestly,
and the lesson of the temple, it varies in terms of importance. So the first two temples, you really feel these strong lessons are being taught through these trials. But the third temple,
yeah.
the focus was more on the character relationship between Anne and Sasha over the lesson. The lesson was a little bit more
Mm.
surface level. It was all about persistence, which is a quality that Sasha actually had, but Anne had to remind her of. So it really was different from the other
Mm.
temples because the third temple was more of a canvas for Anne and Sasha's relationship than a lesson on its own.
Right. Yeah. Definitely. I definitely got that feeling for Sasha with her temple. Absolutely. So I know the Sprig and Ivy or Spivey fans will get on me if I don't ask, but what was the inspiration for Sprig and Ivy's relationship?
So the relationship was kind of crafted by one of our writers, Adam Kolas, and he really wanted it to feel, especially in that first episode, dating season, like that super awkward first relationship. You know what I mean? This weird thing where you're like, yeah, where you were like, are we dating? We're dating, right? So what does that mean? Do we hold hands, or how much time do we spend with one another? And I think after that, though, we really didn't want too much will they, won't they. What we liked about Spivey or Sprig and Ivy was that they
Mm,
no, they were dating. They were legitimately going steady. And what would that look like? You know what I mean? Like
right.
we didn't really want to show where we were teasing the audience with, oh, are they gonna get together? Are they gonna break up? Like, although we talked about it, it's like, do you want to have like a Sprig and Ivy breakup episode? And we were like, no, that's weird for them. Like they're sweet kids.
Right. Like, yeah, at the end of the day, it's like these two, they're just adorable together. You don't need heavy drama between them. It's like they could just be together. Like that, and I think
Yeah,
that's
like what does
something
that look
I can
like?
appreciate. Right. I think that's something I appreciate the most with them, is that it's like it's just a simple and very pleasant and nice relationship. There doesn't need to be anything heavy to happen. I mean, other than, they're split up at this point right now. Well, split up technically, but it's not a matter of like, oh, there's heavy drama, someone's clearly wrong or in the wrong about what they did. It's like they're just a very cute couple. Like, let's just have a cute couple. Why not have that? And I kind of like how
Yeah,
you went about it with season one, with how they got together. Like, just ignore
yeah,
the
yeah.
bullshit. Let's just get to it.
Yeah, they're not split up, but they're definitely long distance right now.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Like it's like they can't see each other, but they're still together
Yeah.
in not in the metaphysics, not in the physical way, but
Yeah, yeah. I
but
mean,
yeah,
I think that we liked the idea, like what you were saying, that this was a relationship that wasn't just dragged down with conflict. You know what I mean? Like they weren't at each other's throats, and that's a lot of relationships on
Mhm.
in TV shows too, where it's just like, what is it today? You know what I mean? But with these two, like you said, that seeing them together is almost like just kind of a relief. It's kind of a nice thing.
Right. Yeah, I think that's what so many people really enjoy. It's just it's just a simplified and just very pleasant and enjoyable relationship, and I think that's something that I kind of miss seeing a lot of the time. It's like don't just just have the relationship, just have fun, have a pleasant, nice
Yeah,
relationship. That's all you need. You ain't need
yeah.
nothing
You know,
more.
I mean, we considered love triangles. We considered everything, man. You know what I mean? Like when
Right,
you're in there and you're writing these characters, you get it all down on the list, and you say like, do you want to do this? Like, do you want to do that? Do you want to have a love triangle with like another character? Do you want to perhaps try like all these different plot threads? And
hmm,
ultimately, like I left it to the writers to decide as a group like what they thought was the most compelling, and
right,
none of them really drifted in that direction. And so like it wasn't something that I was really fighting for. So I was happy to let them kind of take these two on a sweet, steady journey, as opposed to
right.
something like, I don't know, like Maddie coming in or another character coming in or someone coming in, you know what I mean, for who
Right.
likes Ivy as well. Like we could have done it, you know?
No, yeah, but I think with what we ended up getting, it's like it was really just pleasant and nice, and I think that the writers did a really excellent job in giving us just a nice, simple relationship to really latch onto and just have fun with. I think that's just ultimately really pleasant, and I think we could see tend to see more. We should see more of that, honestly.
Yeah, it's nice. Maybe it's telling kids like, hey, it doesn't have to be sticky always. You know what I mean? Like you can have a healthy, supportive
Right.
relationship, you know, and that's fine too.
Exactly. I think that's always a good message to send, and you guys did it excellently. So, my friend D'Angelo of Hats Off Media wanted to know: do amphibious residents have a different lifespan compared to humans? So basically, it's like, is it the same? Is there a frog years type thing, like with dog years, or is it like they just can live longer? Because I did realize, because there was that interesting thing mentioned about King Andreas in True Colors when he said he's like thousands of years ago, and yet he's here now, and he doesn't look thousands of years old. So I think that's kind of something I want to know too. Even
Yeah, and when he was introduced as the peacekeeper of 1,000 years, which implies that, like, yeah, he's been doing this for a long time. I don't want to get into it too much because it could be spoiler territory, but I will say that
right, right,
generally the life spans are comparable to human lifespans. Like, and that was like something we joked about internally too, which is like Hop Up, like maybe Anne's like, well, how old are you, Hop Up? He's like, I'm 12. You know what I mean? Because like their life cycles might be so different.
right. That,
But I think ultimately it was important for you just to think of them as humans. So their life cycles are pretty much the same, save for some exceptions.
right, as we recently found, and we're probably likely to see more of come next season, which definitely leaves me hyped up to see.
Right.
So, okay, I like that. It's interesting. Definitely want to look out for that come the next season. Um, we didn't really get to see a lot of like Marcy and Sasha dynamic, like just the two of them. So, what would you describe Sasha and Marcy's dynamic? Is like, considering we didn't get to see too much of them together, just the two of them.
Yeah, so this is a great question, really interesting one too. And yeah, it's not something we've seen on screen a whole lot, but my description of the relationship is a little bit like this. Sasha and Marcy don't fuck around
Hmm.
with each other. They're very straight with one another. They're a little bit more
Hmm.
professional. Do you know what I mean? Like that's a weird thing to say about friends, but it mirrors sort of
Right.
the three-way friendship I had when I was a kid where they treated, me and this other friend treated our middle friend a little bit differently, but we were very direct and frank with one another, but we were a little bit squiffy with the third one of us. And I think what's really interesting about that is I feel like Sasha and Marcy almost use Anne to communicate with one another sometimes. You know what I mean? Where it's sort of like Anne can be this messenger between the two of them, and they're a little bit more like they know each other and they have each other figured out. They know what their strengths are and their weaknesses are. And I think they're a little bit more businesslike. Like in the third temple, when Marcy runs up to Sasha and they're immediately just like, oh my God, it's so great to see you. And she's like, yeah, you too. Look at your armor. Wow. They're on the level. They're on the same level. And I think to them, and this is super sad and a little bit dark, but I think to them, like Anne is like a little bit lower. And I think, but they're both sort of up here, and they're very aware, you know what I mean, of that kind of relationship, because Marcy's got the grades, she's got the smarts, she's got the, you know what I mean, the ingenuity. Sasha has the will, the strength, the ambition. And I think Anne, they don't know it because they're young, but Anne has something just as important or more, which is that heart, that glue, that connectivity. And they absolutely must use her in order to kind of connect with one another. But it is a really interesting thing that is nuanced, which is, I think, back home, that was their relationship a little bit, which is that Sasha and Marcy were sort of the ones who were speaking at the same level, and Anne was sort of in between a little bit.
Right. Okay. That is definitely different. I didn't expect that. So basically, Marcy and Sasha is like, yeah, we're on the level. Like, because, like you said, when they met up by the third temple, they just were casually like, oh, cool, it's nice to see you.
Yeah, they made like a beeline for each other. Do you know what I mean?
but when you think back to like Anne meeting up with Sasha or Anne meeting up with Marcy, it's more like, oh my god, girlfriend, I see you. Oh my god, it's been so long. What's happening? That is wow. That's very different. I wasn't expecting
that. Like they sort of got those kid gloves on for Anne. Right. You know what I mean? Like they're sort of both. I mean, and they're both sort of playing. Like the idea too that like I just feel like Sasha wouldn't need to manipulate Marcy so much. She would just directly say or ask. You know what I mean? Like, hey, Marcy, I need this from you. And Marcy would be like, you got it. You know what I mean? Let's do it. But I think with Anne, they have to take a very different path, like both of them. So it is a very specific thing that, like, I feel like was very much part of my friend group. You know what I mean? Like, you treat each other just a little bit differently based on, like, what your perception is.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's because that's very interesting, considering how we saw the dynamics play out throughout the whole season, especially when it comes to how Marcy ended up, like, she was like she got so emotional by the end towards Anne. Like she didn't look as heartbroken, and I feel like that's the thing. I feel like Anne brings out the emotionality from the characters, because like with Marcy by the end, she's panicking, she's crying, she's breaking down. And I feel like it's because she's like, wait, no, it's one thing with Sasha to be upset with me, but you, Anne, you're the emotional weight for us. Like, you gotta hold us down at this point.
That's a great point, because when the chips were down, it was Anne who Marcy turned to be absolved, right? She was pleading with Anne more than Marcy. And I think that reflects something of Anne being the moral compass of the group. I think either of them would turn to Anne, to understand, like, but I did the right thing, didn't I? You know what I mean? Like,
right. And I think,
I think too that like, in my head, I don't think Sasha needed to use her kind of like end of discussion thing like nearly as much with Marcy. I think with Marcy, she was a little bit more direct, and it was, they understood each other.
Right. It's like this is what I'm doing, and this is how it is. We like, you're
and Marcy's like, I'm picking up what you're putting down. Yeah.
Right. Okay, that
spooky stuff, huh?
Yeah, that's pretty heavy. It's like, wow. Like that really puts that finale scene way more into perspective. Like, that definitely. I'm gonna be thinking about that a little bit more now. Jeez. I mean,
Yeah.
that hit me. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, three-way friendships they're weird, man. You know what I mean? Like they're very
Right.
political. It's like three nations. You know what I mean? That's why with this whole show we've really leaned into this kind of like elves, dwarves, humans thing for the frogs,
Hmm.
toads, and newts, because it's like that's sort of what's happening.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I think that's what it is. Definitely. Man. All right. So, speaking of that finale, kind of gonna get into something heavy. You guys were able to kill a child.
She's not dead.
I mean, yeah, but I mean, if you did stick around, it's like in your mind, it's like. But to continue, it's like with the delay that ended up happening for the finale, was there any like massive pushback you were getting, or any of the specifics? If you can get into that, like, was there ever any major pushback you got for the show for that?
Yeah, so this is sort of the question I know a lot of folks have been waiting for, and this is the first time I'm sort of speaking about it, publicly, or speaking about it with someone, and I will do my best to do justice to kind of all sides of this discussion, and keep it brief when I say that the ultimate concern was our younger
Yeah.
viewers, and leadership,
Mm.
really felt that this scene might be too intense for specifically 5-year-olds, 6-year-olds. And for context, it's
Uh,
important. It's
mm,
important to know that Disney Channel as an entity has been trending quite young. So by that I mean the demographic
mm,
of those watching the channel. It's been getting younger and younger over the years, and I think that is leading to an increased
mm,
sensitivity around certain ages and certain and what certain scenes, what that will do to them. So that was the discussion, and the obviously the awkward
mm.
thing about it, and sort of like where it all kind of blew up, was that this note came 2 days before air, and this is an episode that had been
Mm-hmm.
approved, completely approved by all parties. S&P, I worked very closely with S&P.
Right.
The episode had been approved 7 months prior, so it was kind of a scramble, and it was a lot of work, and there was compromise. The compromise being A, disclaimer, and then B, we were going to show the season 3 main titles a little bit earlier. And
Oh.
I'm happy with how things turned out. Yeah, I'm happy with how things turned out, and I'm so glad that the episode was able to be released in its true form, unedited. The only casualty really is something called dramatic tension, which is that classic kind of cliffhanger.
Mm-hmm.
Character is in a mine cart going off a cliff. Will they
Right.
survive? Tune in next time. It's just
Right.
classic TV storytelling. And I will say that's the one thing that I feel like y'all were robbed a little bit of, that dramatic tension. That kind of
Mm-hmm.
is she okay
Mm-hmm.
feeling, was it just would have been legendary to have everybody on the edge of their seat for a few months as they waited to see more of season 3. But I think that
Right.
in the absence of dramatic tension, you guys can at least have hype.
Right, exactly. That definitely answered a thing, because I mentioned this in my recent second thoughts video. Second thoughts video. I was wondering. It's like I feel I was like, I know they had to show this like opener just to compromise for the fact that it's like you basically showed a dead child, and it's like, okay, no, she's okay. Before you get any ideas, she's alive. It's just, but
Yeah,
that that's
yeah,
it.
and I,
That is
I
interesting that was compromised.
yeah, and the concerns are valid. You know what I mean? Like, it's the kind of thing where, taking a step back, I think something about the episode about True Colors is that it's so real. The music cuts out, the look on her face, the amount that it is held. You know what I mean? That picture is held. I think it was a little bit too much for them, for leadership, in the sense that, like, 5 is quite young.
Mm. I, I think that's. I
So
mean, yeah, I think that's sort of the thing. To me, I mean, I don't want the mouse house to like jump on me, but to me, I do feel it's one of those things. It's like them kids can accept. Like growing up, we've seen sort of harsher things from Disney. You know,
Yeah.
we've seen Tarzan where
Yeah.
they literally killed a baby. Like that, like there's no
Yeah.
exaggerations. Like that baby's dead. Like that cheetah tore to
Yeah.
shreds. We saw that. And
Yeah.
so it is kind of
Yeah.
weird that, but I mean, but you kind of can understand. It's like demographics change. We don't know where people would stand
Yeah.
on some things. So
Yeah, and
you kinda get
it's trending young too, so there's a chance it could get even younger. You know what I mean? Like, so I think that, I agree. You know what I mean? And that's sort of the
Mhm.
creative is kind of a non-starter because, like, I argued, that every child in America saw Peter Parker crumble to dust in Tony Stark's arms in
Right.
Infinity War. Like every kid saw that and they loved it. You know what I mean? That's the best
Exactly.
when you have such an investment. You care about these characters so much that you're terrified for them and you hope they're okay. Like that's magic. That's a magical thing. But
Oh yes.
I don't want to dwell on it too much because the issue's been resolved and I'm happy with how it turned out. But it's tricky,
Yeah.
and this is one of those things that there's politics here, and it's hard to be told. You know what I mean? We have legitimate concerns, and you can either argue or you can kind of try to find a path forward. You know what I mean? But I will say that, like,
Yeah.
I'm happy that the episode came out and that it's unaltered. I think that's a big win.
Right. And ultimately, I think you guys, if anything, you probably blazed the trail to get people to get it to be seen. It's like, okay, apparently people kids can handle, seeing someone be horribly impaled. but I think for the
Yeah,
most part, you guys,
exactly. Like,
yeah, like you guys definitely were
yeah,
able to
I think
pull something off strong.
If anything, it demonstrates what you were saying, which is that kids are fine. Like, they're mature and they're smart and they can handle this sort of thing. They know that it's in service of a story.
Yes, I think, yeah, but a lot of us, like, growing up, like, we know it's a story. Like, we know there's no chance of a
Yeah.
giant Newt King coming down with some freaking laser sword and
Yeah.
impaling us with it. Like, we know that's not about to happen.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I don't know, man. 2020 was pretty crazy.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. Anything's possible after getting through 2020 at that point.
Yeah, no, exactly. But I will say that, and you guys know this, like, and that's the thing too, is that, content creators, man, you guys are like, you know what I mean? Like, you watch this stuff, you have enough experience to kind of sniff out what's happening behind the scenes. So, like, mad props to everybody who sort of, like, pieced together the story without me having to say anything.
Right.
But I really was just after this grand, Harry Potter, Star Wars, Lord of the Rings moment, Boromir, Dumbledore, you know what I mean? Like, these tragic things happen and they're part of the story and people will never forget them.
Oh, yes. I think this is one of those cases where you did very much have your I am your father sequence or your Boromir sequence. You had that and it feels like that. And I think you definitely, it's going to be talked about. I think this is something we could say maybe 10 years from now, people are going to be like, oh yeah, Disney did something like this. This is what they did. Like, they showed this. They got hardcore for it. And I think that's just the amazing thing of it, to be able to, like, be able to tackle something so heavy and it hit that many people that hard, to be able to get it trending for so long and even. Like, I think that's just amazing.
Yeah. And it's really only because people care about this character. You know what I mean? Like, and I think that's where storytelling is at its best. Like, we're not just trying to shock you.
Mm-hmm.
I think it really is. You see, and we'll talk about this a little bit, but, like, True Colors really is Marcy's dive. Like, where you learn so much about her,
Right?
And you really, in that moment, she understands. Oh, this is not a game. This whole time, I thought I was, in this fantasy and part of this adventure, and it wasn't that at all. You know what I mean? Like, and I think that's why it's so important.
Right. I think that's that's the interesting thing. It's like, for Marcy, it's like she's all happy-go-lucky. She's like, she's happy. It's like, I am in my element. I'm having fun. But then it's like, here's reality to kind of tell you, yeah, no, it's about to get real.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I think that's just really. I think that's really good, honestly. So,
Yeah, it's like you didn't know what you were gambling until you lost it, you know?
exactly, it's exactly that. Honestly, so, I'd have to get into something, that I think a lot of people, me included, were definitely wondering, and it's about Marcy, being when finding out about the music box. Like, we saw Marcy found out about the music box from a book by the author Dr. P. We also saw it had Bill Cipher from Gravity Falls in it. So was that just like a nifty little cameo thing, or was that sort of you trying to indicate, yeah, this takes place in the same universe as Gravity Falls?
So I don't want to say too much because I love the theories and I love the mystery. What I will say is that I hoped that in seeing Bill Cipher on the same page as Goliath from Gargoyles, you would sort of think that if you turned the next page, you might see like, Jake Long or Bonkers the Bobcat, that this book was sort of like had all the TVA properties in it. It was some kind of connective tissue between our multiverse. You know what I mean? That's what I was hoping one would think when they saw that. It wasn't just because I liked Gargoyles and I like Gravity Falls. It was sort of like, I want to see more of this book, man.
I know I definitely do. That dang. So basically, you were trying to be like, hey, if y'all want to make, I don't know if you play Kingdom Hearts, but it's like if you do, it's like hey, if y'all want to make a Kingdom Hearts series, I kind of laid some groundwork for you over here. If you want to just follow that model real quick.
Yeah, like how DuckTales 2017, they really tried to make a Disney afternoon multiverse. I wanted to lightly imply that perhaps it was a bigger multiverse than just the Disney afternoon,
Oh yeah, I think that's what a lot of people were really expecting, especially like come season 3 of 2017 DuckTales. Like, I think they really wanted it to be like, here's this big universe, and we got a little bit of it, but as we saw, DuckTales is over. But I think that's actually a nice touch. Like, if someone were to come by and try to, I don't know, pitch some type of multiverse series, like, I think like that's the great jumping off point. It's like there's your foundation. Just try to build from there. It's like you got it now. Like,
yeah, I mean, I love what Ian did on OKKO. I love it.
Oh my god,
the reverence that he connected the Cartoon Network universe in such a fun way. Like, I just think that stuff's always fun.
Oh yeah, if we can get something like that, but like a bigger scale to happen with Disney properties, like I think Disney about to be like even
cool.
richer than they already are at that point. like that, it would just write. It just basically would write itself at that point. Okay, so with season 2, it manages to have many episodes with some nice development for the characters, most of which came back into play in the finale, like Hop Hop acting, and it was it difficult, like, keeping track of everything and bringing it into play later on?
So, because the show is iterative, like, it allows us to kind of, as we were writing True Colors, to look back on the season we had written and kind of pull. So it was not difficult. It was fun. You know what I mean? It was fun to kind of think, well, what should Hop Hop bring to this A team? What should Polly bring to this A team? What are the things in this finale that you're dying to see? What payoffs can be the most satisfying here? You know what I mean? Like, I will say the thing I am the most proud of is just the robot factories. The second you see them turn on in True Colors, you're like, oh my god, those things are all over the place. Oh no, you know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, that's exactly it. Like, the second they turned on, it's like, oh crap. That went against what I thought. I thought those were supposed to be like the frogs versions. I didn't know those were Andreas. Are you serious? And they're evil? Oh my god!
Yeah, like we're in trouble now.
It definitely was a curveball and a half.
Yeah.
And you see, and it's that one image we got where you just see them rising from all over Amphibia. It wasn't just the one area where Frobo came from. It's like all over. It's like,
yeah.
What are they? How? how are they about to face that?
Yeah,
At that point.
there's this amazing shot that director Joe Johnson he put in the episode of, it's when all the Warwoodians are looking up at the sun and you see all the little dots, the contrails like flying towards the castle. It's one of my favorite.
Yes,
it's one
exactly.
of my favorite shots because you're just like, oh, they're so boned, you know, like
exactly. It's like yeah, it's like, well, like you could basically Dukes of Hazzard that shot and just be like, well, it seems like they've stepped into a real swamp right here.
How are these frog boys going to get out of this?
They're about to get out of this. Exactly. Like, oh man, that's funny. That is funny because like I remember that part so well, and it's like, Jesus, that they can't get out of that without something going wrong.
Yeah.
Like everything has to go wrong now.
Yeah, it's that Jaws moment. It's man. Like, oh, we're gonna need a bigger boat, you know, like
it's like you're gonna need a bigger boat, you're gonna need some Saiyans on your side, probably call up Superman, get him into his prime form. So it's about to get real. Oh man. There's this very particular episode that really interested me back in like October that you guys aired, and it's the Shut-In. That was a pretty interesting episode with its sort of "Are you afraid of the dark?" vibe, and even having some disturbing imagery that was surprising for even Disney there, especially with the story about the frog who wears the other frog skins. Like, what inspired the stories and monsters we saw? Were there any heavy ideas that end up having to get cut out from that episode or even the season in general?
So I love that episode, and actually, as you know, me and my and the studio were discussing True Colors, I was sort of like, Halloween, like the Shut-In is way worse than anything in True Colors, man. You know what I mean? I was like, there's some stuff in the Shut-In that like scares me, and like you guys, we're fine with that. You know what I mean? Like, right. So there is okay, so the Shut-In. Here are the inspirations. The first story is 100% like The Ring, right. the one with the phone mo,
right?
With the idea like 7 days and the thing coming out of the screen and
right.
and you know what I mean, like, so that's 100% Ring inspired. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. The monster itself a little bit more from 80s movies like what they called Critters or even Gremlins, where you have this cute thing that turns just awful,
right?
You know what I mean? Like, so it was a combination of those two kind of genres, the kind of Japanese, like Ringu-esque stuff, and also 80s kind of furry monster horror movies. But also, I'm a huge horror fan. I love horror. Like, it's one of my favorite genres. I will just stay up on Netflix watching the worst, like the most horrible things I can find. You know what I mean? Like, right. and the thing about horror movies too is like, the more you watch, the harder it is to scare you.
Yeah, that makes sense. At that point, you're desensitized.
So like, you know, to get that hit. Yeah, exactly. So anyway, the second story, the devil one, Dead End, was inspired by, you know, there's this great segment in Buster Scruggs, that Coen Brothers Netflix movie that came out that had. It was these characters riding in a carriage, and, you know, death was among them.
Right.
And, you know, it was that great story that feeling we wanted to bottle up and put into that story. But we thought like, oh, you know, wouldn't it be so funny if death was there for Hop Pop's hair? You know what I mean? Like, that's the whole story right there. Right. And it's to this day, Bill Farmer's like screams of anguish when he's like, my hair. It's like my favorite thing.
Right. That was pretty hilarious. Like, you.
And the last story, the Skin Deep, is the most horrifying, and it's absolutely inspired by, you know, movies like Jeepers Creepers, where, you know, you find this murder shack and it's just full of skins, or it's full of things on hooks, and you're just like, oh, we're in it now.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, and then, you know. But the reveal of the seamstress, which was beautiful, it was boarded by Imbal Brita, and, you know, the character design was by Joe Sparrow. That was really inspired by, you know, one of our crew members. His name is Steve Wolfhard, and he's a comic book artist. He's our retakes director. He has this amazing comic called Cat Rackham, which I I encourage anyone to go out and read. It's so great. There's a story about a crazy cat lady. Yeah, Cat Rackham. It's phenomenal. There's a story about a crazy cat lady who she's been kidnapping cats and sewing them on her body, and it's just disgusting. It's just horrible. And they're still alive. These poor cats are like all over her. And there's this incredible shot where she like takes the bathrobe off, and you just see it's a horror show. You know what I mean? And like, so that was sort of like, I was deeply inspired by that moment. And so when you finally see the seamstress in the light and you see it's got these bodies all stitched together, we really wanted you to feel that same sense of just like, oh my God, you
Jesus, know? I'm gonna definitely have to check that out. Oh my God. Like, that's a lot.
It's good stuff, man.
That's a definite turn. I was not expecting that. Like a cat lady, like that dimension to take it to that level. Like,
chef's kiss.
I'm gonna definitely look that into that one. But Cat Rackham, I'm gonna look into that. Like, man.
By Steve Wolfhard. Okay. It's really incredible.
That's interesting with all those different inspirations. Like, because the shut-in definitely wears all those inspirations on its sleeves, but it manages to like still be its own thing. It's like this could like it definitely works. It's like if you haven't engaged with any of that stuff, you definitely could easily. It's still very probably mess with some kid's head somewhere. I know the whole pile of dead frog skins on the floor is bound to put some kid in like the mental ward.
Yeah, and you know the writers they wrote this great wraparound story, you know, with the blue moon and the curse of like the were frog or whatever. Right. Like Todd McClintock and Michelle Cavan, they really nailed it. That I'm so proud of that episode. Like I think it's a really fun Halloween special.
Oh yeah, I think that's definitely one of the. I could see that definitely popping up in a lot of people's like top lists because it's like it's so it can be very disturbing and unsettling, and I really like that. I really like that because we kind of a lot of Halloween specials like or at least modern, they haven't been as heavy. But for you guys like we're like we want you to be afraid to turn off your lights.
Yeah, we really wanted to.
Like we want you to constantly be looking over your shoulders, wondering. Is someone there? Is someone there? Is someone there? Like, I like that.
Yeah, totally. Like, make them afraid of 2D cartoons again. You know what I mean?
Right. Exactly. Really like that. So, Anne and Marcy are set up to clearly have known each other the longest. So, would it be safe to assume that Marcy's betrayal hurt Anne possibly more than Sasha? Like, would it be safe to assume that seeing so much of Marcy throughout the season was to add impact for the audience when her true intentions were revealed? Granted, we kind of got into that a little bit, but I think we can get it.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I think what was, Anne was blindsided, completely blindsided by this.
Right. I think we saw, like, she definitely looked like, it's like, wow, you seem like the one friend I could rely on, and I find out, wow, you're kind of possibly worse. Like, because you put us in this situation now.
Yeah, it's arguable.
Like, it's like...
yeah, I think, yeah. And the voice actors are so incredible in that scene. Like, I have, like, Brenda's songs kind of like, Marcy. Like, you know what I mean? Playing in my head when she's kind of like, when Marcy's pleading and pleading, and Anne's a little bit like, whoa, man, whoa. Right. You know what I mean? Like, you've gone really far with this.
Exactly. I think that's definitely it, and I think Brenda like definitely was pulling off that vibe perfectly. Like you definitely get the feeling of this is a friend who literally is like trying to panic and think that their words can save him, but it's like no, you screwed up. You definitely screwed up. This is not. You can't talk your way out of this. Like, and I think that's something that hit really heavy because especially for the audience because it's like, we liked you. We really did. And then you did this.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I almost like, every great story has some tragedy in it. And I think that we really, we wanted to do it lovingly. You know what I mean? These three girls, like, we love each of them individually. And, I'm not like pointing fingers at any of them. I would love for viewers to kind of see it from all sides if they can.
Right.
But like, yeah, it's sad. It's really like, and the performances are great. You know what I mean? Like, it's a really, it was sort of a hard moment to see, like to kind of like every time I saw it and throughout the process, I was just like, oh my God, geez, like, I'm so sorry, Marcy. You know?
Right. Like you do feel the uneasiness because it's like you were so nice, but at the same time, it's like you screwed up. Like
Yeah.
you got to live with that one. That's on you.
Yeah.
I do.
But maybe she can make up for it.
Possibly, yeah. Hopefully, because it's gonna be a long road. But it's like you got to be willing to trek
but
it.
I mean, yeah, and arguably, like her actions immediately afterwards at the end of True Colors are very noble. You know what I mean? She really scrambles, I think, to make things right, which is a great kind of demonstration of inside she is this, this good person.
Right. I think that's something we got when it's like she does basically help Anne and the planters get away. It's like she basically is trying to be like, okay, I know I fucked up. I'm going to do something. I gotta, like, Anne clearly wants to get out of here. I gotta get her out of here, especially since King Andreas is also batshit. Let me fix this somehow. Like, so
yeah,
I
let
think
me fix
like
it. I'm not going to go down as the bad guy. Like I'm not going down like this. This is not how I'm going to be remembered.
Right. That's definitely something I feel was just that little bit of that noble spirit inside of her that shined through by the end. Exactly. So there's sort of this thing we see in kids media that there tends to be a bit of a softness, particularly in what can be shown to them in shows, be it violence or dark or heavy subject matter. But what we saw from True Colors, what is your philosophy when it comes to creating this type of media?
Yeah, I mean, simply it has to be in service of the story. Everything we do is for the best story possible. If it gets dark and if it gets raw, it's because we're trying to bring out the best of these characters. I would never do anything to be gratuitous. That's not me. That's not my team. Like we would never do something just to shock and appall you. We want to, the word appeal. It applies to all fronts, and I think that when it comes to violence and it comes to darkness, like it should all be appealing, even though it's dark and it's violent. It should all be in service of something, more. The story, the characters. It shouldn't just be, holy crap!
Right, right. That's something I think really can be maybe lost on some like products, particularly shows or movies, where it's like you're clearly doing it and it doesn't feel like it's motivated. It feels like you're just going through the motions for it. And I think with Amphibia, we definitely get a feeling of this was planned and this was always the plan. And I think it's way more effective, definitely. Like we definitely, because it connects both on a logical standpoint, but also on the emotional. Now, the emotional standpoint to me is probably the more important because it's like that's what really gets us hooked in. That's what makes us want to even come back. And I think Amphibia definitely manages to connect perfectly on that front, but it does it on both sides, be it logical and emotional. I think that's something I really, really can appreciate that you guys were able to pull off with this.
Cool. Yeah. Thanks.
I almost feel like I kind of left you a little like, dang, what do I say to that?
No, it's perfect.
All right.
You got it. Nailed it.
All right. With True Colors opening on Marcy's home life and a bit of what motivated her to want to escape to Amphibia, I kind of was wondering, it's like, what was the inspiration for opening with the flashback? Because it was kind of a thing I was thinking, would it be different if it was that the flashback happened when Marcy was outed or anything like that? So I was wondering what was the inspiration for that.
Yeah, it's sort of a flavor thing where I like it when at the beginning of a story you sort of know whose story it is immediately, and sort of like whose journey is this. In First Temple at the very beginning of the episode, you see almost immediately it's awkward between Hop Hop and Anne, and so your lizard brain immediately is like, this is an Anne and Hop Hop episode. You know what I mean?
Right.
So with True Colors, opening with Marcy and her flashback was super important for me to kind of tonally prepare you for this being a Marcy story. for this being, this is going to be a Marcy oriented story, even though we're going to see Anne, we're going to see Sasha, but really when you see the beginning and you see it connect to the end where she kind of gets, she gets stabbed, those two are bookending the story,
right?
In a way. So for me, we could have played it where you waited to see the flashback when Marcy was confessing, but for me personally, I don't think I would have liked to pull you, the audience, out of that moment and bring you to a different time and space, and then somehow get you back. It would have been very difficult. It would have been difficult from my point of I would rather that you just let the track play. You know what I mean? Like at that moment. But it's it's personal preference. Like storytelling is flavor and it's instinct and it's personal preference. So I'm sure someone could have gotten that version working incredibly well, but this is sort of what I like to do in terms of like bookending stories and letting the moment just kind of play as is.
Right. Okay. Because that was something that was like, it feels like this could have been there, but now with what you said, it's like, no, you do kind of need that uninterrupted moment of literally Marcy panicking and being outed and all that, because otherwise it's like, okay, I'm in this moment, but it's like, oh, pulled you to the past. Now you got to see how that scene plays out real quick. Then we're back to the present. It's like you basically you got the mind playing ping pong, and it shouldn't have to be doing.
Yeah, it's a little. We call it tromboning.
Trombone. Oh, yeah, tromboning. That's really good. But yeah, I think that's.
But it's personal preference.
Right.
Like it does come down. Like that's the thing about storytelling. Yeah, like you can tell the same story multiple ways. It could have been better that way. I don't know. It could have been effective in many different ways. And I think that's why when it comes to when it comes to criticism and when it comes to people's thoughts on stories, I really don't take any of that stuff personally, because story is kind of organic and it's personal and it's what you want to do with the time you have. You have 24 minutes. How would you like to use it? You know what I mean? Like, so it really is like, there's no real wrong answer. Even when you're like, well, I would have done it like this. That's fine. Like, that's totally cool. And like, maybe it could have worked. I couldn't tell you, but like that stuff is all like, it's all constructive. We're all searching for the best way,
Right. And I think that's interesting. I think you guys tackled it. But like I said, with your explanation, it definitely puts things in a nice perspective. It does come down to a bit. It is subjective. It's like for some people, they probably think the flashback should have been there, but for others, it's like, yeah, the flashback was fine where it was, because you like you said, it's like you need that moment to just play. It can't, like, no pause and skip to other part or nothing like that. It needs to just be as heavy as it possibly can with no interruptions as is. And I think that definitely gives me more appreciation. Right. It definitely gives me way more of appreciation for True Colors on that front. Definitely. I like thinking about that. So, yeah, really, awesome. Really think that's nice. All right. So, with animation growing more and more in popularity and seeing many creating web content based around it, like reviews and deep analysis, as like say yours truly or others, if you engage with any particular videos online, what do you think of this age of cartoon content creators? Like, have you ever let the awfulness of cartoon Twitter affect you? I know, because as we've seen, some people, the internet's really free. So, as we've seen.
Yeah, this is a great question, and it's almost two separate things. Because, like, I love content creators, and I feel like you guys are doing so much work in terms of, getting audiences engaged with the content, creating meaningful, constructive discussion. I feel like hype, like, you guys do more for our shows than our own networks. We've all said that, you know what I mean? Like, it's something that, like, we feel deeply. And really, I think what your discussions are doing is they're elevating these shows by making these videos and talking about our shows like they deserve to be talked about. You are putting them on, you're giving them dignity, you're giving them respect. You know what I mean? Like, this stuff, it means a lot to me, and it means a lot to my peers. I think that, like, by talking about them, and you're adults, you're basically telling the world, hey, this stuff is worth your time. And I think that's very important.
Right.
And it's something that is a little new. You know what I mean? Like, this wasn't something we had 20 years ago. And, you know, one of my friends, Rob Renzetti, who's the creator of My Life as a Teenage Robot, he always is like, you guys have it so good now. Like, if I wanted to find out what people thought of an episode, I had to like dig. You know what I mean? Like, it was hard back then, like in the late 90s, to find that kind of feedback, because it's not like kids were telling you. You know what I mean? Kids would eat their cereal and watch the cartoon and then move on with their lives. They weren't blogging about it back then. But like now, there's something so amazing about, after an episode airing, watching a video, reading thoughts, and really getting a sense of feedback. Because the trouble with working in cartoons, especially cartoons for ages 8 to 12, is sometimes you feel like you're just kind of like screaming into the void, because it's like, you know, not a lot of news outlets will review your work because they think it's for kids, you know? So it's tricky to get genuine feedback, which brings me to the next part of your question. Has animation Twitter ever bummed me out? Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it bums us all out. Right? Consistently. But, you know, something that's really important for anyone who makes content, yourself included, is to just know, okay, which of these folks are actually trying to help me? Which of these folks are actually trying to help me tell stories better, let me improve as an artist, and how many of y'all are just like taking the piss?
Right.
You know what I mean? Because like some people are just out here like the Joker. They just want to see it burn. And like, it took me a little bit to develop an instinct for who was trying to help me and who was just not really doing that at all. Exactly. And like, you know, I can just ignore those comments and just kind of focus on the ones that I really think there's folks who care about this stuff and are trying to either, you know, help us make it better, or just kind of chiming in. And like, that stuff's awesome. I mean, sometimes it's too much. Like, sometimes you've read one too many YouTube comments and you need to kind of put it down. I think anyone who makes content needs to train themselves to kind of put the phone away, go outside sometimes.
Cut some grass, like just get away for a second.
Touch something, yeah.
Like, I think that's honestly really interesting. I do think, because my philosophy, because as you say, with like a lot of content creators, you have some who are just out taking a piss, being mainly just being overly negative, probably just doing it for the clicks, doing it for the money. But at least for me and a few others, it's more of a, we want to actually give our genuine thoughts about these things. For me, I had the idea of I'll give my genuine thoughts, but I started realizing I'll mainly give my genuine thoughts when I really like it. And if it's negative, it's like that could just be like a small little initial, like my initial impressions of the thing, and leave it on that like video. But most of the time I've stuck to just, let me be positive. I want to like, because my thing is, people keep talking about how modern cartoons are not as good as the 90s, but it's like, no, they are good. Like, these shows are pretty freaking good. Like, if you just watch them, you would know. So that's why I always put it out that I'm trying to just put that out there. I want to talk about the good stuff that is there.
And that incredible montage you made, like, you know, to me, what you have done is you've kind of, you know, you've taken that negative energy and you judo through it into something positive, right?
Yes, exactly. Like, I'm a guy who's like, I can get angry, I can be negative, but I'm gonna flip it. I'm gonna be like, okay, exactly. I have all this negative energy pent up, but someone needs to get hit with this. Who deserves it? Oh, some punk teenagers online? Oh, yes. Glad. Like, let's school some people real quick. Like, let's get the books out and teach a lesson real quick. So I'm like, that's how I see it. It's like, let's put this negative energy into something that actually helps, something that's going to be effective in getting a good message across to people that they need to know.
And that montage is like, you're serving these kids, but you're also like, you've created a really cool piece in the process. So it's kind of win-win, right?
Exactly. Like, that's kind of how I see it. It's like, I'm teaching a lesson, but at the same time, it's like, for future reference, if people need to know, or even to send it to somebody who's clearly talking some nonsense, like, send this that way. And they've been doing that. I constantly see this video getting those videos getting shared, and it's like, hey, I'm doing some good work. It's like I managed to do something good.
Exactly.
Thankfully. Like,
Exactly.
oh man, I do think.
Yeah. No, it's great.
Yeah, I do think like us content creators, like a lot of us do see it, like be it like Roundtable or my channel or Hats Off Media, even or Wacky Deli, Toonrific Tariq, and many like D-Dub Man Review Your Life, many people, honestly, like Leia, like we're all about like we or Johnny Tuchello, sorry, really trying to get these people's names out, sorry, but like it's all about like we want to do something positive for the things we love because we love animation, and it makes no sense that
Yeah.
we're just letting it be ruled over by a bunch of for non-kinder words usable hacks. Let's actually get people who
Yeah.
love the medium to talk about this stuff, and I think that's what our biggest philosophy is, and I think that's just an amazing thing happening
Yeah,
now.
it's great.
Absolutely.
No, and we really appreciate it. Like anyone who makes a show and watches content, like I mean, nothing makes our day more, honestly. So that's something I hope you guys know that.
Oh yeah, I think we all definitely feel gassed up whenever you guys like or retweet or even respond to something. Like I definitely was feeling happy when you and Hannah like followed me back after I made that video. I was like, oh wow, they made it to them. Like I was just hoping to just say something really nice or just say something defending them. And that's it. I didn't expect anything to come out of it, but I'm glad something did at the end of the day. And I think that's what I really like is that we managed to help fix we're still fixing that gap that is happening with content creators and animation industry people. Like I think that's something it's just amazing that we're able to finally fix this bridge that's been just deteriorating for so long.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool. Yeah, no, I'm happy.
Oh yeah. So with season 2, we saw a major step up in the animation and design of the show. So much so it managed to gain an Annie. What was a bit of the process for the upgrade? Because we definitely saw like smoother animation styles, definitely more unique uses of like positioning and design for characters, and a real step up, especially like for the Super Say Ann scene from True Colors. Like, definitely want to know like what was the process for all that.
So, it has a lot to do with organically the show is growing, and we're seeing different sides of it. We're going on this road trip already. We're like, we need a CG wagon, you know what I mean? So like that was expensive, and then we're seeing all these new locations, and we want them to be as cool as we can, so that you really feel like this fantasy world is real. And then we're doing these temples, and those need to look amazing so they live up to your expectations. So I think that really we were organically pushed into doing our best work in this season. And with that, Anne using her powers for the first time, we knew that moment just had to be amazing.
Oh, yes.
It had to be wonderful. And so that meant, well, we got to call in the troops. We got to call in the SWAT team. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like it needs to live up to the expectations of Sprig's like death.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
So like, I think that we really were motivated by the story and by the escalation of the show. And I think that season 1, it mostly all took place in Wartwood, which meant that we were restricted with what we could design and what we could show. But in season 2, we really the floodgates opened and we could do all these really fun, creative things and push ourselves. So I think organically the story helped us do that.
Right. I think that's definitely something that shows. Like you guys, you pick the right pivotal moments to say this definitely needs to upgrade. This definitely needs to be where it's like we gotta pop off. We gotta get some heavy shit hitting.
We have to pop.
It's exactly like when we got the Super Saiyan scene. It's like we gotta go. This needs to be AMV quality type of animation shit. Like someone's gonna be like someone get on it. Take this scene, put it in AMV somewhere, something like that. I work dabble
exactly. Like the quality must equal the emotion.
Exactly, and I think that's definitely something that really hits the audience way more because you're just like, oh, the scene is even more powerful now. It's not because if it was just the standard animation, it's like it hits, but it's not as like in the heart. like you're not hitting it in the heart like it needs to be hitting right now. Like this needs to be like I'm going to be shaking, which, like I said, I was shaking. Like my hands were constantly. I was like really gassed up. I was like,
dude. Well, and so we brought Small Boo, which they're a boutique animation studio, and they're great. They made Batman Piderman, which is just like the funniest thing ever. I remember watching that all the time when I was younger. And they're also like amazing action animators, and so I was so happy we got to work with them. They were absolutely brilliant. They plussed it. They did such a good job. And I know that like anyone who grew up watching DBZ knew what we were after. That the moment where Goku goes Super Saiyan for the first time, it's like mythology, man. You know what I mean? Like it's so good, and it's so like there's something about it that was like what I'm watching right now, like is gonna stick with me for the rest of my life. And we really wanted to give a similar quality to this moment for Anne, this girl who like, she's not into video games and anime and all this stuff, but she has found herself with this mantle thrust upon her. She's becoming this thing, you know what I mean? And like we wanted it to be this moment that felt like when Frieza had killed Krillin, where you were just like, this is a point of no return for all of these characters.
I think that's honestly excellent. Like because it very much has that feeling of the Frieza killing Krillin moment. Like you definitely see it's like, oh, this is what we were building up this whole time. Okay, you have me now. Even more than you already did. I gotta see what's next. Like, and I think that's what really solidifies it for season 3. It's like, okay, like where do we go next? Like, ugh. Like, because you guys are building really heavily.
And there's this, like, and like, we've got our Jenga tower too. So it is so satisfying to see, our kind of like domino pieces fall down, and for you guys to enjoy it so much means the world to us. Like, what I love too about this Super Saiyan scene, or really the Goku scene, is just, it's intrinsically, there's a moment where you've just pushed a person too far. Like, and we all know it. We all know how that feels like, to just been like any force, like not even a person, but nature or anything, like when you've pushed it too far, it like explodes. You know what I mean? And like, I just feel like we wanted that same feeling where it's just like, Andreas, you went too far. You know what I mean? Like in this moment, and you're going to suffer the consequences because of it.
Exactly. I think that's what makes it really really strong, is that it's like, Anne's been, she just got betrayed by Marcy, betrayed again by Sasha. It's like, and now she just saw her friend get chucked out a like 10,000-foot window.
Yeah, really.
Like it's what it's really? Like gloves off, like, done.
She's like, yes. She's like, it's been a hell of a day. You know what I mean? Like, and I'm done.
Exactly. It's like someone's just gotta catch hands real quick. I don't care who. Well, okay, I care
exactly.
who. It's like someone's just gotta feel these fists right now. I think that's really great. Right. Oh man. So, okay, this is a thing, because I really, really like General Yunan, and there was sort of this thing where we saw General Yuan actually help fight alongside Anne and the gang, but we didn't see her go with them to Earth. Is it safe to assume she and Olivia were captured or made it with Sasha and Grimes? Or made it out with Sasha and Grimes? Like, it's...
That's a spoiler. That is a spoiler. I can't answer that.
I was doing good until that. Damn. I was having
all the information except that one.
Exactly. I was like, damn. I was like, I knew it. It's like I knew there's going to be one question that's going to very much get hit with the spoiler. Can't say nothing. So, oh well. But we're rounding off. We're close to rounding off. Are there any misconceptions about being in the industry you definitely want to like dispel? Like, you constantly see on cartoon Twitter people spouting off dumb shit that's like, that's incorrect. Why are you saying that? Is there anything like you want to dispel?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No one is lazy. So I see this a lot where where, you know, oh, this show looks the way it is because somebody was lazy, or oh, this show looks the way it is because somebody didn't care enough or work hard enough. And the truth is just every show is its own little economy and its own little ecosystem. And there are so many things that need to line up for these shows to come out looking great. And sometimes something gets messed up and everyone's still doing their best and doing their hardest and working their asses off. And, you know, sometimes you're not happy with the end result, but that's not a reflection of how hard people worked on it. So like that's sort of what I would kind of plead with folks, is just like try to give people the benefit of the doubt and be generous, because I think that, like, you know, we're all doing our best and we're working so hard, and like, you know, you never know the circumstances under which something got made. And, you know, I think just to say like, oh, they're lazy, or oh, they didn't work hard enough, is like, it's a huge disservice to my peers and to me, and like, you know, everything that we're trying to do here. So I would just think a little bit before you go ahead and slap a label on folks like that.
Right. Exactly. I think that's something I've always been constantly trying to push. The idea is like, people who keep trying to say, oh, animation is lazy. It's like, here's the thing. Like D'Angelo of Hats Off Media has told me this. You have to be insane to want to do animation, because you know what animation is? It's taking individual frames and making them move. It's really, really difficult. Like, like these people are not paid enough, and for you guys to be spouting off of that is lazy. It's like, go do it yourself, and you will see. Oh, these people are just insane. They're not lazy. They're just insane at that point. And they need raises. They need money. They need some therapy. Like we need to support these people.
They need therapy for sure.
Like, it's
so much so. And there are these colossal forces at play. The networks, the cable companies, you know what I mean? The industry, and they're all, you know what I mean? Like they're these huge floating like UFOs above us that could just abduct someone at any moment, you know what I mean, or shoot a laser down and blow something up. And it's so hard to you know, we don't have as much control as you think we do, I think, is what, you know, what I'm
it's
trying
always
to say.
A matter of, there's like, we're in a society that has bosses, and no matter what, you're gonna have people who say nope. It's like, does it affect the money? Is it affecting the money? Is it affect the money? Nope, can't do it. Like, that's what people kind of got to understand. It's like, people have bosses, and you have to listen to your bosses, otherwise you don't get anything made. And that's just kind of how it is. Like, we wish it could be better.
Yeah, and like, we're out here fighting. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah, but you know, the stuff you do love, I think, like, love it more because it's a miracle that it exists.
Exactly. Like, that's what it is. It's like, you just got to appreciate the stuff that you do have, because, you know, it took a lot of hard work, and a lot of the stuff very much shines through.
Yeah. And I don't want to say that like we're afraid of criticism. We're not. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that, like, you know, yeah, have a little bit of respect. Like, I think we all love criticism, and we all want to improve our craft. Because I've seen this comment so much as, well, why can't I give criticism? Don't you want to make your thing better? And it's like, absolutely, but you can deliver that criticism in a manner that is constructive. Like, that's the trick. It's how you deliver. Your note could be amazing, but how the note is given will mean the world of difference.
Exactly. At the end of the day, it's like, you can give your criticism, but you can't be an asshole. Like that. Otherwise, your criticism don't mean nothing. You might as well just throw it in the garbage.
Yeah, probably not going to take it.
Yeah, I think that's really how it always comes down to. Just be, like, plain and simple. Have respect, because we are all human beings trying to get by, doing the best we can, and sometimes, you just got to be willing to just
Amen.
Say, like, you're doing your best. I appreciate that. And I appreciate you and the crew very much with all the hard work you guys put in for season 2. And just before we go, I would like to ask if there's any hints you want to give for season 3, if that's in the cards, if you feel like it.
Well, you know, hints, no, because, like, honestly, like, the season 3 main titles that was released is like way more than like I wanted you guys to know at this point anyway.
Right, exactly. Makes perfect sense.
So I would just say enjoy the main titles, you know, and look forward to season 3. We're so happy with the reception of season 2, and know that we are doing our best to one up ourselves in season 3.
All right. So for everybody who's very much interested, if you want to check out Amphibia, it's coming, all of it, or more or less seasons 1 and 2 will be all on Disney Plus June 4th. More or less season 2 coming to Disney Plus June 4th. And you can check it out and definitely hop on board because it's definitely getting crazy and you definitely don't want to miss season 3. I'd highly recommend checking it out now. But I really want to say this now. I really appreciate you, Matt Braley, for coming on and talking and having a great time and just speaking as much as you can and saying everything about what you love and doing the craft. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for having me, and thanks for everything you do.
All right. Thank you so much. And everybody, just remember, it's just a thought. The opinions expressed in this are of the individual guest and only of the individual guests and not of their employers.